listening to The Starting Zone, a podcast about World of Warcraft and the people who play it. And now, here are your hosts.
Well, hello and welcome to The Starting Zone, the podcast about World of Warcraft, the people who play it. Today is December 6th, 2023, and my name is Spencer Downey. Thank you so much for listening and subscribing to the podcast. I am joined today, as always, by my co-host Jason Lucas. Jason, how are you doing this fine Wednesday?
Spencer, hello. Yes, happy Wednesday to you. I'm doing okay. I have played just a shocking amount of World of Warcraft.
So much World of Warcraft. Oh my god.
It is absurd what's going on out there right now.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining. You know why? Because it's like late November, early December. That in my brain,
it is the time of World of Warcraft.
Time to play World of Warcraft. That's when I started doing it, and that's when I always want to do it. And we are eating so good right now between live game and season of discovery and whatever else you want. I mean, there's other stuff you could do, obviously, but I mean that's what I've been playing both of those things a lot this past week and just loving it, man. I'm having a great time with this stuff, and it's really nice to be able to switch gears between like everything I do in retail and then sort of that end game loop and the sort of the weekly stuff I want to check off and goals I'm trying to accomplish. And then just feel like I can log out of that and then have this kind of broader, more, slower paced thing to do sort of by myself or, with a smaller group or whatever. Like that dynamic has been really cool. We've talked kind of at length about how Dragonflight sort of is missing something in that kind of chill single player loop that maybe other expansions have had and that maybe Delves will fill in War Within. And so at the moment, it's like, well, I got Season of Discovery sitting there. So if it's not time to raid, it's not time to do keys, then maybe it's time to do that.
Yeah. It's, man, it has been a crazy week, as you said, of World of Warcraft. So I not only last week was like, oh, I'll get my Mythic Plus in and I'll, make sure I do my loop and everything like that this past week. It was also, as you said, the Thursday launch of Season of Discovery. I decided that I wanted to sort of push that as much as I could. Now I worked full day Saturday. I worked on Thursday, so I sort of got my jump Thursday evening and then into Friday full day, and then I did Sunday. I was 25 by Monday, so I pushed pretty hard. And I actually was able to get into the raid, which reset on Wednesday. So Tuesday night I actually got into the raid, and was able to actually see the raid, which was great. We cleared the raid, which was fun. Man, it has been a whirlwind. Geez, I have so much to talk about Season of Discovery. There's so many things. First of all, at my vault, because everyone likes hearing about vaults. So last week, sort of like last Tuesday, I got my Best in Slot staff, which was a Farak staff, which was very nice. I'm very happy with that. This Tuesday, the most recent one that we just had. So for this week, I actually got my one of my Best in Slot trinkets, the one that comes out of the
nice.
The one that makes a mirror image of yourself that casts basic spells, which made me very happy. So that was cool. It's been nice to me. The vault has been kind, which I've enjoyed quite a bit. And then outside of that, and doing sort of like the normal loop for that, which I will continue to hark on, Super Bloom needs to be shorter. All of the timers need to be reduced. The amount of bloom that you get off of killing stuff and helping out needs to be increased. Like, just make the whole thing go faster, please. Like, it's a drag.
There's enough texture or variety to it. Yeah. So having to do it for 20 straight minutes is just like, okay, I get it. It could be more like an 8 to 11 minute experience.
It could. Yeah. I think 8 to 11 is a good number. I think increasing the bloom so that you can cap it out easier is great. Like, people are going to do it and get the rewards. Why are you making them do something that feels like a slog? Like, just reduce it, make it easier. That doesn't need to be a chore every week, because that's not the goal. The goal is to have fun. So make it a fun thing. So I'll hark on that. That's my live game stuff for the week, I guess, that I'll hark on for the Season of Discovery, man. Okay. So, first and foremost, 1 hour Hearthstones are a thing inside of Classic.
Use them wisely.
Yep, use them wisely. There are a lot of quests. I'm leveling a druid, so I brought Triage, my Resto Druid, over. I leveled him as balance, and then I switched over to doing Resto once I was max level and actually healing stuff for people regularly. Now you can sort of at level 25, like every class kind of does everything because the talent points aren't making like a huge difference, right? So runes make the biggest difference. So right off the bat, you find a rune early on for Druid that makes your Wraths not cost mana, and there's a 12% chance when you cast Wrath that your next healing touch is instant. So it's amazing for leveling because mana is the biggest slowdown. It always is. It's the biggest bottleneck. So the fact that you never have to worry about mana with casting Wrath is great. You get the Sunfire rune early on as well. If you go down and track that out, that's right near Teldrassil as well, just in the southeastern area. You get Sunfire, and Sunfire does almost twice as much damage as Moonfire and costs half as much, which I didn't quite understand why, but it basically meant that I just never used Moonfire because it ran me out of mana too fast, so I just used Sunfire all of the time. So runes were very powerful, and sort of worked my way through leveling there. Had a really good time. Would sort of partner up with Sloot and Josh and some other folks whenever we could. But so then you start noticing other things about it. Like I didn't know that Warlocks had Incubus in this classic version that they put out. They added the Incubus in. So like every Warlock I saw was running around with the high polygon Incubus as opposed to using the low polygon Succubus, which I thought was kind of hilarious. So cool to see. Glad they included that. That was a fun thing to see.
It's like the highest quality asset in the whole
It is.
client.
It looks better than anything else in the game.
far.
It's so weird looking to me. Like I get why it's there. I love that it's there. It's just very strange to see
There's more polys in that than in all of Ironforge.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it's exactly. It's very, very strange to see. I leveled them as skinning and enchanting. Now I'm ditching skinning to go tailoring with the whole new loot system that's going on, which we can talk about a bit later on. But it's nice to have a gathering profession while you're leveling in Season of Discovery, because not only can you send your friends, so Josh was leveling leatherworking, so I just mailed him all my leather. You can sell it and make some coin off of it too. And the coin in Season of Discovery is a very have you hit max level yet, Jason?
I'm 24.
You're 24.
So
okay,
I'm pretty close.
So at max level, the experience conversion to gold on quests, and this is intentional, is level 60 equivalent. So when you are out doing quests at level 25, you can get like a gold to 2 gold off of completing a quest. Some of them are 40 silver or whatever it is, but most of the time you're getting a gold or more off of completing a quest, which means gold prices are all over the place. Because people are like, oh yeah, I found this green. It's level 24, but it's really nice. I want 15 gold for it. And you're like, what? Like, what?
I've started to make a lot of coin off the auction house just selling dumb stuff, because now the servers are old enough, and because of stuff like that, like there's gold in the economy now. So
yeah,
I already have like over 10 gold.
Yeah,
just from dumping stuff on the auction house, and that's kind of nice. I would be concerned about doing a lot of quests at 25 though, because I'm going to want to do quests to get to 40 and beyond.
You've hit the topic that I actually raised immediately. So when I found out this was the case, the first thing I said is, I wonder how many people are going to do a bunch of quests at level 25 and not have a zone left for them to level in, so they'll have to go to dungeons to level for the first couple of levels until they can actually unlock another zone to go to where they can actually kill mobs and do things.
Right. I mean, for a lot of people, that might be preferable, that sort of goes against what I was just saying about how SOD Classic is always like a nice place for me to chill and kind of play at my own pace. So I wouldn't want that, but I mean, hey, that's certainly an option,
Yep.
And if you're raiding and stuff, like you're gonna have good ass gear to go in there and do the dungeons. So the dungeons aren't gonna be too much of a problem to level up with, but that's my immediate concern, right? I mean, I'm a vanilla player. I'm an OG, right? I've been around. I have concerns about leveling through the 40s and stuff, I want to make sure I have plenty of stuff to do, especially playing a warrior. So that seems to me, that's scary, right? Because I'm like, I'll just make gold some other way. I need those quests. I need the doable quests all over the map.
Well, the nice thing is, because it's a conversion on experience, you can go back and do, like, if you leveled up over in Ashenvale, you can go over to Westfall, knock out all the Westfall quests, which are practically gray, if not green, and get
That's true.
a ton of gold coin out of doing that.
XP anyway. Yeah.
So you can do a lot of older quests and go to other zones and get that kind of stuff. That's an advantage. Personally, my strategy is I've left the wetlands alone. I'm just not touching it. The wetlands is going to be my leveling zone, and then I'm going to go north over up to Hillsbrad and that kind of area, the Arathi Highlands and Hillsbrad, to do my leveling route. Because we found out it's going to go up to 40 is where the next level cap's going to be. So that to me is my plan. I'm just leaving that area alone, and I'm going to clear out a bunch of other stuff. So right now I'm working my way through Duskwood, which is another good leveling zone, to just clear out a bunch of stuff there to get a bunch of experience and a bunch of coin really at this point, to be able to afford to buy anything, because everyone's selling stuff for so much coin. It's kind of hard to keep up with the economy. So I don't know if I love that or not. The one thing that'll be really nice about the economy is it's going to find a balancing point because they did this, because there won't be as much inflation when the next chunk of content comes out, because everyone's going to become gold starved, because there'll be quests that get experience but not coin, because you're not getting that conversion rate when you're actually gaining the experience. So when we see that 25 to 40, there'll be this like lull or dip in the entire economy that then spikes back up again when people hit 40, which will be interesting to see happen. So I think we'll see a leveling off here at 25, not knowing how long this is actually going to be in this state. In phase 1 is what people are calling it, of Season of Discovery. So we'll have to see how that goes. Something I did notice, though, and why I actually have flight points up inside Hillsbrad, because I had to run to South Shore, was I was trying to get my Wild Growth rune, which if you are a Resto Druid and you have not gotten the Wild Growth rune yet, go get it, because it's phenomenally powerful. Oh my goodness. It is essentially like casting a healing touch on every single person in your group. It is the version of Wild Growth that ticks quickly up front and then slows down over time. And it's for the raid, it's hugely valuable because there's a lot of AoE abilities, and basically it's being able to do like Wild Growth one group, 8 seconds later Wild Growth the other group. You're like, this is great. So definitely keep that in mind. But when I had to go up to South Shore, the Wild Growth rune is surrounded by level 31 Murlocs. So I have a beef.
Those top end runes.
I have a beef with runes being placed inside areas. This isn't the only one. There's a lot of them out there. Placed inside areas where it's surrounded by mobs that you can't kill or fight. When something's more than 6 levels, because it's 31, 32, more than 6 levels above your level, you literally can't hit it. Like, it's a skull or it's 31 red, and you can't kill it. And if it's a Murloc, you can't just pull one, because it's going to tear off and grab a whole bunch of other Murlocs, or come with a bunch of Murlocs. So you just end up death running, which to me is just, I can't imagine that their entire goal of this system was to just have people death run to get a rune. So I feel like there's some oversights with this kind of stuff. I feel like the rune system was probably developed and put into place puzzle-wise without considering what was around it very much. Because the one that you do to get that particular rune, this is one stage of it, is you have to use swim forms. You have to unlock swim form earlier. You have to use swim form to swim from one island to another island within a short time period, a 2-minute period, to be able to make this swim. So you have to have swim form to be able to make it. And I did it with like 15 seconds to spare, so there is a little bit of leeway there. But why those 2 islands and not 2 islands inside a zone where there aren't mobs that are that high a level that are going to try and eat you? It seems strange to me to put runes inside an area like that. I have no issue with runes being challenging. Part of that same rune quest is defending a particular area from waves of level 25 mobs that come and attack. So I actually brought in 2 other people to make sure that we could actually do this together and be able to accomplish it to unlock the rune. I think that's great. I think making that a challenge is a great way to go. I don't understand doing it with level 30 plus mobs. Like, just don't.
Yeah, there's a level where it's just too much, right? Like, it's cool to have some stuff that's aspirational or like a challenge to unlock it, because that's very much like Vanilla WoW was, at the time.
Yeah.
So I think it's all fair play. But yeah, if it's going to be stuff that like you literally can't level up to even be able to hit it consistently, like that's sort of that is maybe not the way to go. Like, it's one thing to make something difficult, and it's another to make it like you said, you have to death run it. Like, that's not really. I don't think people find that to be fun, even if it might lead to like a good story or something. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. You want to feel like you're accomplishing stuff in the game because you're playing it well, not because you're sort of cheesing something just to make a result happen.
Or death run, just you have to death run past it. That's the only way to do it. It's literally like you either have to get into the water miles away and swim from miles away over to these islands, so you avoid everything on shore, and even then you might run into a thresher in the water that's going to kill you. Or you just run through the murlocs and die, and then run back to your corpse, and then res farther out than the murlocs, and hope they don't aggro on you again with a massive aggro radius because you're 6 levels below them. That to me is just one of those like, okay, like I don't feel like that sold as well to me. But I also have to highlight the Horde favoritism that's going on in Classic, because everyone seemed to love Horde a lot more. And I don't mean like the player base is choosing Horde as a faction to be more. I'm talking about the fact that there is a level 150 cooking recipe that is Horde only. So it is the only cooking recipe that gives you 8 to stam and 8 to spirit. And it is a 150 required cooking to be able to make. And it comes from a Horde vendor that only Horde can speak to and buy from. Now, I did acquire it because the Gadget Sands auction house is the cross-faction auction house. And someone bought this 5 silver recipe and put it up for 4 gold. And I spent 4 gold to buy it so that I could actually make this food on Alliance side. I've been slowly trying to make my coin back selling the food on the auction house. But it is one of those like, guys, there's some favoritism here.
Sharp edges. Well, yeah, I mean, Horde bias confirmed, of course,
yeah,
as
exactly.
always. We always knew that.
Yes,
but it is weird how, like, when they were designing that version of the game, that they didn't just put things in 1-to-1. Like, why isn't there just the same thing on Alliance?
I know.
You wonder how that kind of happened. But
there is no 150 cooking recipe for Alliance. It doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's just that's really strange. But Horde players, go make some free gold, and Alliance players just go buy it and then sell the food.
Exactly.
There you go. That's how it's just keep that wheel turning.
Yeah. Raid itself, obviously I won't spoil because there's probably a lot of people who haven't dipped their toes in it yet and will be either this week or next week. But it's the loot there is great. It is high item level, fun effect on it loot. It is not stuff you've seen before. It's not stuff that normally drops from that instance. It's all new added pieces, which is cool. There are boss mechanics. They are classic boss mechanics, so they're not super complicated mechanics. Often your brain is so used to modern WoW, if you've been playing it for a while, that you overcomplicate fights and are like, oh, maybe we have to like make this thing breathe its frontal breath on top of this other thing over here so that other thing doesn't activate. Or maybe it's like, no, it literally activates at a certain point in the fight. It just always is going to. There's no way to stop it. That breath thing it's doing is just the breath thing that it's doing. Like let's remember how simple Classic was here, right? Like, so it was fun to go in blind and have to learn mechanics in the raid and learn the raid. And it was fun to, accomplish defeating the bosses, which took a long time. Like learning the bosses was something to realize. And there definitely is gear thresholds where it's like, this is a DPS race now. You've hit phase 2 of this fight. This fight will now kill you progressively, very, very quickly. There's a boss that puts a dot on people that ticks for over 100 damage. So it just starts killing people. Like, it's like, I'll put a dot on you, you can't dispel it. I'll put a dot on you, you can't dispel it. I'll put a dot on you. And then suddenly it's like, okay, these people are just dying. There's nothing you can do about it. So they do have those mechanics. They do exist. And that is a DPS race. So figuring out when you need to push like that is a thing. There is a item that drops off of the last boss in there that gives you a zone buff, like the Onyxia head kind of concept. And there is the device, if you go to a reagent vendor that they sell, which is the Chrono device that lets you store that buff. So if you're someone who hasn't played on the Classic Realm in a while, you can actually get this buff from turning in this item, which gives everyone inside your party or your raid the buff. So be sure you're inviting in all your friends so everyone can get the buff if they want, as long as they're in the city. And then you use this Chrono device to store that buff. And so the next time you go to raid, you can unlock it or release that buff and have the 2-hour buff for your raid, which is actually kind of cool. So I dig that and keep that in mind while you're doing all the raid stuff. Man, it has been a blast doing Classic, I have to say. The drive to gear is a really interesting thing because it's like forced twinking for the game, right? That's what Season Discovery kind of is. It's like everyone gets to 25 and they all stop which means everyone's trying to find that, like, ooh, there's this staff from Deadmines. I better go back and run Deadmines. And Shadowfen, Shadowfen Keep has this like particular chess piece that everyone wants. Let's go get that chess piece. And this dungeon has this thing. Like it's forced into doing that for everyone. And the raid obviously has the best loot, but the raid you can only do once every 3 days. So it's like this like gearing up while also raiding intense sort of compressed space that's got me really into it. So I've been digging Season Discovery quite a bit. I'm going to raid again on Thursday night. So I'll get even more time this week in Season Discovery, and we'll see what's going on next week. And hopefully we find out soon an idea of how long this is going to go. My guess is it's, 6 to 8 weeks. That's my guess for a season. Some people were like, it's 4 weeks before the next thing. I'm like, I don't know. Like people have a lot of different ideas,
Like you want to give people a chance to play it. I hope it's not 8 weeks either. Like I don't think I'm going to be able to get what I need to get out of the first phase in 8 weeks. So, we don't have any info on that at the moment, but I guess we'll see.
Yeah, we'll have to see what they choose to do.
Yeah, 4 weeks is way too short. I mean, and you have so many people coming in to check this out. It's like this entire population is not going to be done with this content in 4 weeks.
Well, and it's made to be bite-sized content in the sense that it's made to be content that, in my opinion, players get into, they play intensely for a brief period of time, and then they're totally okay setting it aside and doing something else for a bit because they'll come right back to it when the next phase hits, right? And that next phase, like I don't feel like one phase has to really roll in that hype train into the next one and roll into the next one after that. I don't feel like it needs to do that. I feel like it's fine to go, yep. If this lasted 3 months, here it is lasting 3 months. I might be done in a month and go, yep, I'm done with that. That's fine. I'll play some, modern WoW, or I'll play something else for a bit. And when the next phase comes out, I hop back in, pick up my character, keep rolling again. Or I make an alt or, whatever it is.
Right. I mean, your character's there ready to go, and everybody else has been, it's not like everybody else was getting ahead of you.
Exactly.
Substantially at that time. So everybody's back to, the same kind of process together, which is the cool part about it.
Yeah, the only thing I guess that you could potentially do if you really wanted to like min-max things is pick up 20 quests and complete them all and not turn any of them in and then get this huge jump at the start of the thing launching.
Right, like we used to do before like expansions would come out.
Yeah, but that's about it. Like that's all you could really do to get a jump on anyone to be ahead. So yeah, no, I don't know. Overall, I think it's a great feature for WoW. I think the rune system is very cool. I think... actually, here's an interesting one because you've been playing Season Discovery as well, Jason. How do you feel about the new reputation system?
I'm pretty much just ignoring it at this point. You're talking about like the Azeroth Commerce Authority or whatever it's called.
Where you get the crates and turn in a couple.
Yeah, I turned in a couple crates if it was something that I'd be collecting anyway because I'm doing mining, blacksmithing. So it's like, okay, if I could do this without thinking about it, I'm doing it. But I'm not gonna, I mostly just pass on them. Honestly, like I don't really bother with. I don't know what the end game of that rep system is. Like I don't know what you get out of it. You get a little bit of coin for turning them in. You don't get any XP really to speak of. So, I don't know. It was kind of an interesting addition at first because like, oh, what's this? How does this work? And then I turned it in and I'm like, okay, I got 300 rep and 15 silver or something. Like, cool.
Yeah,
I could have made more coins selling that, but
so every single different class and spec has a rune from that Commerce Authority. So there's one rune that's locked behind it for everybody. So at some point or another, you'll want to actually get that reputation up. I think it's to friendly, and then you can actually get the rune to be able to learn that. The rune that was locked behind it for rogues is their tanking rune. So you have to do the rep grind if you want to tank on a rogue. So Sloot was playing a rogue and wanted to tank on his rogue, and he tanked the raid on his rogue, which is a pretty cool experience to sort of check out. And in order to get this done, they added a hotfix in on Monday, I think, or Tuesday. It was Monday. Was you can now actually pick up multiple of those crates because you used to be able to just carry one. So
yeah, they were just like a unique thing, yeah.
So this created a bunch of issues because I figured out how to basically get the boxes really consistently, and so I told him about that. Which is by looting the battered chests. Battered chests have like a 100%.
They almost always have them. Yeah, almost always.
So battered chests are your friend, but you can only carry one, right? So you'd have to loot a battered chest, run into a city, turn it in, run back, loot another battered. Like total pain in the butt. This is what Ted figured out in his like mythic brain that he has. He is looting the chest, getting the box, choosing to destroy it, does this for a few hours, and then item restores all of the boxes, so they all show up in his mailbox, and he goes to town and turns them in one by one out of his mailbox from item restoring them all. Clearly, I don't know if this affected Blizzard's decision, but yes, I think allowing people to carry more than one box was probably the wise thing to do.
Yeah, I'm sure they don't want. Yeah, they didn't want people doing that. So I don't know. I don't know if it was like a conscious design thing or maybe just the way the item was implemented. I don't know why they.
I don't know.
Yeah. Why did they come in as those kind of unique items? I can't really think of any like strong gameplay reasons for that off the top of my head. So maybe it was just like some quirk of the way it was implemented.
Yeah, but anyways, that I feel like the reputation locking something like a rogue tank rune behind it, which is such a pivotal rune for the class and such a pivotal thing for actually doing something cool with that. Like, if you want to tank dead mines, you just can't do it until you get this thing. So you have to do this grind. Was unfortunate. I think locking stuff behind the rep is fine to do. I just feel like a pivotal thing, like a warlock or a rogue tank rune, is a weird thing to put behind reputation. I think they should put something else behind that. I would have been fine if Wild Growth was put behind it. I would have done the grind to get Wild Growth out of that. I can't remember what the Druid one is at the moment, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the new reputation and the system with the crates. I would have been a bigger fan of the system with the crates if you could, in fact, carry multiples of them early on. Because the amount of crates that I just left sitting because I couldn't pick them up, like at least 20 or 30 of those crates sitting on corpses because I just couldn't pick them up because I was carrying one already, which feels bad every time you have to do it. So yeah, I think had that been implemented better at the start, that would have helped me out a lot more with the entire system. So
yeah, I don't really, I haven't dealt with that too much. Like those things are such a burden. Bag space is such a premium in this version of the game, and it's like, dude, I don't know. Am I going to complete this crate? Maybe not. I'm not going to go buy these things. Like, so yeah, I don't know. I mean, I got to say, for Warrior specifically, which obviously is what I've been playing, they absolutely killed it with the rune system. The runes that you get early on fix so many of the problems with Warrior combat from Vanilla WoW. And a lot of the reasons why I really didn't stick with Vanilla WoW very much and never really grabbed me, because I was trying to play Warrior and I didn't really know what I was doing, and it was so punishing if you weren't playing it, correctly. I mean, right away you get Victory Rush, which is way better than way better than like live Victory Rush because it costs no rage and
it costs no rage. Wow.
Yeah, there's no rage cost, so it's incredible.
Yeah,
because that just you can actually fight two things at once, and then you can Victory Rush, and then you can kill the other thing, and then you can live, and then you can go on to the next pack, or you can kill one thing at a time over and over and over again without having to stop and eat and bandage every single time. You get a rune pretty early on that you generate rage every time a bleed deals damage, which is just constant, consistent rage income. You get a rune that you can use Thunderclap in any stance, and it does increase threat, which is lovely. And then you get Devastate. Like the Devastate rune is incredible. It's sort of like when Devastate became good in Wrath, where it's like it just modifies the way Sunder Armor works, and it turns Sunder Armor into a thing that deals damage, and it deals more damage the more applications of Sunder you have up, in addition to the target's armor being lower and lower. It feels so good to use. You get this other rune that makes you attack 20% faster with a two-handed weapon. Talk about like rage and just DPS output questing. It feels so much better than Vanilla WoW, and I'm like working on a prot spec because I feel like you're actually going to be able to just play Prot Warrior in this version of WoW because of these runes and stuff. You can like sit in defensive stance a lot more and not have to worry about stance dancing and just burning all that rage on switching stances, which is incredible. And yeah, it just feels super smooth and fun to play. I've been having a great time. I just can't stop thinking about it. I've put so much time into it, just like hanging out with people and old friends returning to WoW for the first time in many years and playing with them. And it's really cool. It's so much better for me than any kind of content re-release or anything. It's because it's fresh. It takes something familiar and it adds all these cool elements in it that really change up the experience. And I mean, the runes are just genius, man. Like they're so streamlined to use. To just I want to change up my abilities now. Let me just apply these runes. Okay, let's go do the other kind of content we want to do. Whatever. Like very streamlined and simple to use, very powerful and fun. It's just a perfect addition to do something wacky like this, just to mix it up. I mean, I don't know. We're going on for a really long time here about a classic season, and that's not usually what we cover. But like, even if you don't consider yourself like a classic player, you need to play this. I'm just gonna put it that way. Like, it's so good and it's so well done. It's this great fusion of. And I was talking to our buddy Josh Corbett about this over the weekend, because I had to reach out to him, because obviously he and his whole crew have been playing this, of course. Mm-hmm. And I mean, everybody's just so stoked on it. It's like, this is just bringing together all these different corners of the WoW family. And it's like, you have this vanilla content, which is in general rock solid, right? The world design is incredible. It's so immersive and fun. It's really stood the test of time in terms of like how fun it is to go out into that world and do stuff, right? You have that. And then the rune system is this fusion of like kind of WoW greatest hits of stuff that has come in over the years in various expansions of different abilities or modifiers or whatever, and also this element of like, well, what if you could do this, and just this crazy stuff that we never thought we would see in any version of WoW, like these different classes being able to tank or mage healing or something like that. What if we just like swing for the fences with stuff like that? And then we wrap this kind of more modern design sensibility around some of the stuff, like the way the rune system mechanically works, make it really streamlined and fun, make it very flexible. And I mean, I really think there's something for everybody in Season of Discovery. If you like World of Warcraft at all, any kind of version of it, I think you'll have fun with it. I mean, I'm having a blast. When they announced it at BlizzCon, I'm like, this sounds really cool, and this sounds like the kind of thing that would make me want to play it. But I didn't really know how much I was going to like it once I got in there and got to like level 4. Like after a couple hours, it's like, okay, is this still shiny or what? And like, man, it's so much fun. They did stuff that's so smart with this, and hopefully this is sort of the future of what Classic looks like. I don't think the future of Classic is expansion re-releases forever. Yeah. I'm sure there are people who want to play that, but like, this is so much more interesting. Take vanilla WoW and just stretch it in different ways and see what you can do with it, because I mean, there's so much buried in there, man. It's such a big sandbox to play in, and the game itself is so great and so strong from that overall design standpoint. And you start breaking the rules, and all kinds of fun stuff happens. So, I don't know. We could do 2 hours just on Season Discovery this week. But yeah, if you haven't checked it out, I implore you, set aside a night this week or something, make a character, and go have fun with it. I think you're gonna like it. I'm just absolutely loving it so far.
Yeah, so I'll say 2 more things about this, then we'll move back into Modern WoW for everyone who's like, oh my god, please move back to Modern WoW. And we'll get into what's going on this week. But all right. So the last 2 things. First is, I do feel like they could accelerate leveling by like 20%, 25%. Would not hurt anyone. I think there are people out there who want to feel like there's a little bit less of a slog. Classic WoW is still Classic WoW. It is a classic leveling experience. It's very chill. It's very mellow. If you're someone who's like, ooh, I just want to get to max level, or ooh, I just want to catch up with my friends who've been playing the game more, it can be a slog, and you can feel like you're alone a lot if you're out there doing leveling, just trying to grind it out. So I will, tell those people, like, the game is a lot of fun. Max level is fun. It is more of the same. The raid is a cool raid to check out. If it's not your cup of tea and it's just not speaking to you, I get it. I do think it's worth trying. I do think they could bump up the leveling just a little bit to sort of help people with that a little bit. I guess
it's a season. Yeah. You have Era sitting there. If you want that Era leveling experience, or if you want hardcore or whatever, they're sitting there. Yeah, I think they could probably, maybe in future seasons, if they do more weird, kind of off the cuff stuff like this, like stuff that's outside the normal box of vanilla WoW. Yeah. Then yeah, we could maybe crank that dial up just a little bit.
Just a little bit. Like not I don't want like 50% or 100% increased leveling. Like we don't need that. I do think like 25% or 20% would feel good enough to be like, oh, okay, you saved me like 4 hours or 5 hours of gameplay, which I think is great to allow me to sort of get to max level quicker, do more dungeons faster, get into stuff, and make it feel more rewarding. So that's something I think I'd like to see. And then I just want to highlight again, like the second thing for me is just how enjoyable it is to have such a vibrant community around it. Like, there's no place that feels totally empty to me. There's lots of people reaching out about profession stuff. The trade channels are just flying with things inside of major cities. There's lots of neat little communities forming around how to get the best pieces of gear and what gear's out there. The rune systems, just absolutely speaking to so many people about how to different ways to play your class and having different abilities in to have fun with. And the coolest thing, and this will go away, I think, as later phases come out. The coolest thing about the level 25 era that we're in right now is the flexibility you have. I don't feel like there's a paladin out there who couldn't be playing Ret and be like, I'm going to tank for this dungeon and be able to just turn and do that, because you have all the skills to do that. The actual talent tree is cheap to reset. They intentionally made it cheaper to reset if you really wanted to do it, but you don't even need to. In so many cases, at level 25, you really just don't even need to.
Swap the runes. The runes set up your job.
That's the biggest
right?
thing. Yeah,
that's really how it works.
So it's really nice to have that flexibility of, hey, you know what? I leveled up as balance. I'm just going to go resto, swap some runes out. Okay, yes, this is feeling good. Okay, I'll actually do the talent points too, which I hardly notice. Like the biggest thing is if you unlock a skill, like I unlock Insect Swarm by going over down the resto tree, as opposed to, having some reduced cast times on Wrath and whatnot. I now have another skill that I can use. I think that's neat to see. It's a little weird to sort of be like, where's my helm? Oh, wait, well, there's no helms for anyone till level 26. Oh, wait, no, but there is. On Horde side, there's a helm with stats that drops off of this particular mob that only Horde people can kill. Horde favoritism. Or on Alliance, there's a helm you can buy that's like just has armor on it that you can get. So there's things like that you sort of start to like find out. There's this one item that could solve that. How do you get trinkets? Like, where are all the good trinkets that you can get, and how would you acquire those? And do you need to go and do PvP to get this thing? And like, it's like a puzzle to sort of solve for you at level 25. I mean, if you haven't experienced and done this sort of like twinking character, and twinking being like locking your character at a low level or inside a level range and not progressing past that before, there's a lot of like really interesting ways that your brain sort of gets going of like, I really don't like my belt. Where's a better belt? And start trying to figure that out, right? It's kind of a neat thing to do. Or buying greens off the auction house because they're upgrades for you feels really strange, but yeah, like a lot of people do the raid in greens, and that's fine. Like, you don't need to have all rare gear to be able to get in there and do it, right?
Kind of gonna have to. I don't know if that many blues even exist to have them everywhere you'd be equipped. So, it's we've just never seen anything like this before.
Yeah. So, anyways, Jason, I do want you to cover what you did in Modern WoW this past week, and then we'll move into what's going on this week.
Very busy week in Dragonflight. We ended up finishing week 7 of 9 heroic. Got Smolderon down, which was great. That is a much more challenging fight than the first 6. You could feel the ramp. I did have to cut the group down significantly. This is the first fight we've had in a while that really punishes the big group. And I didn't even have a huge group on Sunday, but I had about 24 or something. I cut it down to 18, and it was like 2 completely different fights. It was one shot with 18 after we took 6 people out and just cut down the amount of displacement and area denial and all that occurs with the bigger group. So, some people kind of bristled at that, and it sucks. I have to be the bad guy in those types of situations, and I do want the team to progress. I want the people that are putting in the work to get a reward, and I try to be fair about it. I think we need to have forward momentum. We need to be killing new bosses, and everybody's going to get to kill everything eventually. I promise, but maybe not the first time we kill it. And we actually had some time to look at a heroic Tindral, which seems okay. It wasn't like, oh wow, well, this is going to be a huge problem. I mean, we got to phase 3. I think we got to like 18% or something on our best pull, so we were getting there. But it's just the damage ramp gets really, really out of hand when you get the seeds on heroic with the debuff and everything. So I need to set up like immunity rotations and stuff and make sure that all happens. But I mean, raid has been super fun. I can't say enough good things about Amir Drasil. This is the only pain point I've really had is the group scaling thing with Smolderon on heroic. It's just very punishing. But I mean, the raid is gorgeous, super fun, super quick. We did the unlock last night. Unfortunately, when you do the unlock, you do have to kill 4 bosses to get to Farrak, or no, I guess 5 bosses, right? It's the unlock is not much of a skip, but there's almost no trash, so you could do it. You could still do it in like under an hour to just run straight through. That was cool, but no axes yet. Keystones, I did about 8 or 9 last week. I did a lot, and I did a bunch last night. I hit Keystone Hero last week, so I got that. I got the cosmetics unlocked. after last night, I ended up north of 2,600 rating, so that's really good. I'm starting to get, I'm encroaching on where I ended up in season 2. I got 3 portals done already, or teleports. I got Atal'Dazar done. I got Waycrest Manor, and I got Everbloom in the last couple nights. Atal I did the end of last week. Waycrest and Everbloom were this week's rotation, so that feels good. Starting to check that stuff off the list. I got really lucky out of the vault this week, and I got a ring on the Mythic track, only at 480, so not as high as it could possibly be, but I can upgrade it still. But it's the ring from Blackrock Hold that is super haste heavy, and it was socketed, so it was a total no-brainer. Okay, Myth track, haste heavy, socketed ring. I'll take that, and then that opened up my ability to move some of my other stuff around and kind of get some higher item level pieces because I didn't need as much haste anymore. And so that was awesome. So now I'm up to 477 equipped. I crafted my 3rd piece of spark gear this week. So I got my cloak done. I got both of my shadow flame embellishments. My gear's really starting to come together. I still have some item level to get, but also taking that ring unlocked my ability to do crest trade ups from Whelpling to Drake up to Worm. I didn't have any because I had low rings. So getting that extra ring. You got to get 2 of them, I guess, for season 3. And then I got over those thresholds. I got both achievements at once. And then I was able to trade up a bunch of Whelpling and Drake crests that I'm never going to use. So that was really cool. And especially because the worm crests kind of end up being in sort of short supply, because you do so many high keystones and stuff. It's a really nice option to have this season. So I took advantage of that. And I'm feeling pretty good about the state of my gear. I have a couple things maybe to chase, and obviously I hope I get the axe and stuff before too much longer while I can maybe mess around with it. But I don't know. I don't feel like gear is holding me back for anything I'm trying to do right now, which is pretty amazing after 3 or 4 weeks. So, yeah, really, it's really good week last week, and Reset was very kind to me. So just having a great time in Dragonflight. I think the content is really strong, and people are jazzed up to play, man, which is always fun. It's fun to have people to play with. So we've been getting a lot of stuff done.
Good. Yeah. Modern WoW wise, there's a lot to do still. We're going to talk about some more things about what's going on this week shortly. So I don't want to get into too much of it, but I guess I'll just highlight the one thing. I did get the Rune Bear form last week, which made me very happy to get off killing the world boss. So I have that new really wicked Bark Bear form that you can roll around in, so I'm pretty happy about that. But yeah, there's definitely some modern WoW stuff that I really love sinking my teeth into, and let's just jump into it right now. All right, man, oh man. All right, this week in World of Warcraft, we have the Dragonflight Dungeon event going on. The Sign of the Warrior buff is up, where the final boss of each Dragonflight Dungeon awards an extra item when defeated. If you complete a quest for 4 of these dungeons, which you can pick up in Valdrakken on Mythic difficulty, you get yourself a cache of heroic Amir Distilled treasures. Great way to get yourself a nice, juicy piece of gear out of the raid, if that's something you're looking for. This is a high item level piece for folks that are out there. So if you just want to run 4 Mythic Zeros, it's a great way to get a piece of gear. If you're someone who is doing Mythic Plus, just pick up the quest ahead of time, and chances are this is going to be something that is a nice high item level for you. For, at very least, you could maybe catalyze it. There's things you can do with it. So if you can't equip it right away, or it's not the best thing for you, then that's unfortunate. But chances are you'll find something good. This is early enough in the raid launch.
Yeah, definitely a nice benefit this week. This could be a game changer if you get lucky enough. I guess one thing to point out, I saw somebody in Guild in ZTH that was confused about this yesterday, and it was kind of comical. You have to do either Dragonflight Mythic Zeros or Season 3 Keystones.
Yeah.
You cannot go to Warlords of Draenor and set the dungeon to Mythic and run through it by yourself and then go get a heroic piece of Amir Distilled gear. Doesn't work that way. It's got to be current stuff. It's, yes, it can be Keystone. So Everbloom is a Warlords of Draenor dungeon, but you're doing it on Keystone, so that counts. It can be Mythic Zero Ruby Life Pools, but it cannot be something from prior expansions if it's on Mythic Zero.
Exactly. All right. You also want to pick up your Aiding the Accord quest inside Valdrakken, and you choose between this week's Super Bloom or World quests. I have to say, Jason, I was very tempted to choose World Quest over choosing Super Bloom just because of how much I dislike Super Blooms. However, I still need to do them.
But you just got to do one a week. You got to do one a week. It's worth doing it once a week. So, yeah, I mean, if this is going to be every week for this whole season or whatever, then I'm cool with that. If it's either Super Bloom or the planting the seeds thing, like fine. I'm going to do both of those things once a week anyway. So
until I get all the rewards,
double down on
it. Yeah, exactly. PvP quests for the week are Epic Battlegrounds and Rated Battlegrounds, as well as I guess there's just no Brawl. There's no Brawl this week. I mean, they broke Brawls last week. There is a blue post about it,
but I think it's because of the anniversary event is kind of mucking things up. I don't. We do have Corex Revenge like today and tomorrow. It's going away midday tomorrow. It sounds like we're going to be back on Brawl schedule next week. So, but I mean, maybe we can just consolidate this blue post that we're going to talk about later. But
we'll talk about it now.
Comp Stomp's supposed to be back next week. Is what it comes down to, and then we'll just go back.
Yeah, they basically put out a post saying, as noted, we had a schedule conflict between these two brawls, so we put off Comp Stomp. To compensate, we're adjusting the whole rotation by 2 weeks. Comp Stomp will start on December 12th, 1 week after the anniversary event, and then everything else should proceed the way that it normally was. So, yeah, I mean, we're just a week behind now, I guess, permanently. They've just shifted it.
It's cool because we don't miss Comp Stomp, which is kind of what I was afraid was going to happen.
Yeah.
It's just basically we took a 2-week break or whatever from the Brawl, maybe a 3-week break from the Brawl rotation, and then we'll be back on the regular schedule after this week.
Yeah. Okay. We also have the World Boss, Oristar the Hibernator. This is the one that has you can get mounts off this boss, you can get Druid forms, you can get transmog, you can get 441 pieces of loot that can be catalyzed into tier pieces, as well as a haste first neck. So be sure that you're knocking out the World Boss every week. Lots of stuff there for you to want to grab. Mythic Plus affixes, we have Tyrannical, Storming, and Raging, meaning bosses have 30% more health and them and their minions deal increased damage. While in combat, enemies periodically summon damaging winds, and non-boss enemies enrage at 30% health remaining, temporarily granting them immunity to crowd control effects. All right, as far as a Tyrannical week goes, this isn't the worst. But I will say storming can be complicated in a lot of rooms. Waycrest Manor is not your friend this week with storming. It just isn't. Those rooms are all like the outdoor tree boss is the only boss that is going to be a decent boss to have storming on inside this. And even then it's not great. Because all the indoor bosses, the witches are going to suck with having storming going on inside that room. There's already a lot of damage going out, having people be interrupted or knocked up in the air and taking a little bit of damage. Not fun. Having the storming effect during the feast boss, I cannot imagine having it inside that boss. There's already so much going on and dodging and having to avoid his 3 slams that he does, and you have a tornado and it knocks you in the air and you get slammed. That's not going to be fun. And then the last boss room is another small room that's actually even angled and shaped like a tornado, which is not going to be fun when you have these things coming out and you're trying to deal with the little ads and trying to throw a vial onto their corpses and people are getting bounced around. So not the best storming dungeon, just keeping that in mind. The other one that sticks out for me is Blackrock Hold, potentially having some tricky spots with storming with a lot of staircases and stairwells. If you are getting to someone still in combat, storming things spawning in the stairwell while the boulders are coming down, oh my god. Just be aware of it. Those are the two that stand out to me in a big way in my head when I think about storming inside this. But I don't think it's a terrible Tyrannical week. Raging is going to be something that's just a non-affix for Tyrannical. Storming inside a lot of these places is almost a non-affix as well. So I'm hoping that this is a good week for folks for getting their Tyrannical stuff going. I really want to hear about people's experiences with Keystones level 16 and above in Everbloom and that second boss and what that feels like and how people are doing with that. Because I do want to know if that was a weird Tyrannical thing early on, or if there actually needs to be stuff adjusted, because that is a keystone that second boss is just brutal when I was experiencing it early on. So maybe now that people have more gear and they're more experienced, it'll get easier. Maybe it was a pug thing, but I just want to hear what people thought about that. But how are you feeling about these, Mr. 2600 rating on these keystones?
I think this is a good tyrannical week. I mean, I think you said it pretty well. I would say I did Waycrest last night, and I did not have any problems really.
Good.
Like the thing about storming is that like I try to tank the tornado so nobody else has to deal with it. Because it's a relatively minor disruption to a tank, right? Like, I don't get moved too far. I'm usually still in melee range of the stuff that's meleeing me. And then nobody else has to deal with it. So I try to keep it out of people's way. Raging, like, without Fort, Raging isn't as bad because stuff is going to die pretty fast. But, it is still something you can counterplay around too. Like, it might be worth a soothe if something's like chain casting or has some particularly nasty thing that needs to be stunned and you can't stun it. So keep that in mind when you're building your comp. But yeah,
I picture the pterodactyl fear mobs on Ataldazar is sort of like the thing I picture in that situation for Raging.
I think you can interrupt them. Like I think they're anything that's interruptible is still interruptible, but you can't stun them. So like anything that's if you're out of just standard interrupts, if you don't have any kicks, then and you're relying on stuns, well then forget that. And if it's something that can't be kicked, then forget that as well. But so Soos are good for that. I did Everbloom last night too, and second boss was definitely the hardest part, but it was doable. The thing was to just nuke the nature boss and keep the abomination out of the way, kind of, and just have like ranged interrupt set up for whenever the water guy was going to heal, and just kind of chip away. It took like, I don't know, it was like a 3+ minute fight probably, but we did it relatively safely. It took forever. But I mean, I was in there with one of my absolute superstar guildies, who is like probably the best World of Warcraft player I've ever played with in my whole life, and he was playing Demon Hunter, which took a bit of a nerf this week, but is still pumping away. And we had an Augvoker in there who was just activating him in the Warlock. So, your results may vary, of course. It is definitely the most challenging part of the fight, but it felt doable at our current gear level and stuff. It didn't feel like, well, how are we going to get through this? I'll tell you what felt bad last night. I stepped into a Murazan's Rise, and Tyr was just kind of undoable with our group comp on 21. Just too much health, too much area denial, just everything was taking too long, hitting too hard, etc. But it's kind of, I mean, I'm at a point where I probably still need a good 10 or so item levels on my tune, and I'm sure a lot of other people are in that situation as well. It's still early days in the season, and Tyrannical is always a bit thorny, right? Early season, because the bosses can just be showstoppers. I mean, that's kind of the disclaimer we have all the time. But overall, I think in terms of affixes, this is a good week. They're not going to hold you up too much. I mean, you make a good point about dungeons with tighter quarters where storming could be more disruptive because it's just straight up unavoidable. But if you're like a tank, a melee, maybe if you're like a paladin or something where you have like a lot of long range attacks, or maybe you're like a hunter where you could shoot while you're in the air, feel free to tank up the storms for your teammates so they don't have to get displaced when they're trying to hardcast or something. And have some Soos handy if there's a particularly nasty mob, and then it all just comes down to boss execution. If you can lock the bosses down and you have the throughput and you have the strat, then you can push keys this week for sure. So. And you probably need to hit those thresholds for different achievements and stuff, and you need tyrannical rating to do that. So this is a pretty good week to get it.
Yeah, you have to take advantage of these tyrannical weeks when they pop up to be able to do that. It sounds like you took advantage of last week's Fort week, getting your three portals and whatnot done for you and up to 2600 rating. So when these good weeks roll around, we're only going to get so many of them during a season, so you have to take advantage when you can. And this is a decent week for tyrannical for you to get in there and try it out and try and push some numbers up for you folks. So definitely check it out. All right, the WoW anniversary event is ending tomorrow. That's right, Thursday, the 7th of December. This thing goes away. You lose that 19% buff to your reputation and experience. You lose the ability to have your alts parked down in Caverns of Time, turning in the question quest over and over again, the little quiz quest that they have down there over and over again. I have gotten 6 levels out of that so far, which has been great. I think I'll get 1 more level before all of this goes away, which is great. So I certainly enjoyed doing that on an alt, just literally not putting any effort in. It is stackable with Darkmoon Faire, which is currently live. So be sure that you are picking up that as well. I made sure I got both buffs before I did my weekly rotation of things on my main, so I was able to go out and get the Super Bloom and everything else done, as well as the Seeds quest and all of that, while I still had the Darkmoon Faire buff. I would also recommend getting and refreshing your Darkmoon Faire buff before Darkmoon Faire ends at the end of the week on Saturday night, because you can actually get that extra day where you have that extra hour up where you can do things like that. If you really want to, if you're kind of done with Modern WoW for the week, logging out Saturday night with that buff and coming back in on Tuesday and doing everything, you can get the 10% if that's something you really want to min-max. Although you do have to stay offline, which is hard to do right now in World of Warcraft. As far as the anniversary event goes, though, this means it's your last chance to do Korrak's Revenge if you haven't done that yet. If you haven't logged in on a character yet and just picked up your, Time Warp badges and that kind of stuff, be sure you're doing that. If you haven't done your Traveler's Log, cheering at, Leroy Jenkins down inside the Caverns of Time, or accomplishing any of those things, like setting off a firework inside Ironforge or Orgrimmar 10 times. If you haven't done those things, to just grab the free Traveler's Log, basically free Traveler's Log points. Be sure you're doing that, Currency. Be sure you're doing that. It's definitely worthwhile doing. Doomwalker, to get your Azure World Chiller mount. Get out there and kill Doomwalker. It's 100% drop rate for a mount. Definitely do that. You can buy yourself the Illidari Doomhawk or the Doomwalker Trophy Stand toy down inside Caverns of Time if you haven't done that. There are pets and toys and stuff there. Man, there's a lot that you can do. You can go out and kill the classic world bosses for 441 gear if you haven't done that yet this week. Go and do that, because it obviously reset on Tuesday. Get yourself some more 441 gear if that's something you're looking to get. So yes, take advantage of the anniversary while you can, because it's going away tomorrow. So, it's your last chance.
Yep. It's one of those weird ones that ends at midday, too. It's like 10 a.m. Pacific, so it's not at reset, but it's not at midnight. So you have, as we speak, you have the rest of today, and then, until 10 a.m. Pacific tomorrow. So it's kind of weird that it's over already. Everything's just been so busy. I didn't really take advantage of this to level or anything. Yeah. I just, I got the new stuff. That was about it. I used it to help myself out with the Traveler's Log a little bit. Yep. And that was really all I did with it this year, which is, I don't know. In other years, I would have sat in like Korrak's Revenge and like leveled up, or, had the buff rolling and doing the trivia quests and doing all that stuff to try to bang out some levels. But just that wasn't kind of the mode I was in for this one.
Well, when you have a new content patch that's as, beefy as the one that we have right now drop, yep, like basically during the anniversary, it really does pull you away from doing those sorts of events, which is unfortunate, because I do have this like really, nostalgic memory of, as you said, sitting in Korrak's Revenge and just leveling character after character after character after character and getting all these, time walking tokens, and I definitely enjoy that. It's just the way this landed. There was other fun things to do, and so you had to choose how you're going to spend your time, and you couldn't sit inside Korrak's Revenge or kill the world bosses every week or whatever it was that you were doing the way you wanted to do. So yeah, no, I'm with you, man. I definitely did not take advantage. I don't feel like I took as much advantage of the WoW Anniversary event as I had previously, but I've still had a really good time. So it's kind of one of those like, oh, that's too bad. Well, I guess there's always next year, right? Like,
yeah.
It's that kind of thing.
It's a good problem to have. And you got to think that next year is going to be over the top, right? They got to go huge for 20. So, it's fine for this to be kind of a warm-up year. Well, we got, I mean, like I said, there's so much WoW stuff to play right now.
Yeah.
It's not like we really needed anything huge. It's probably better we didn't have anything, honestly, because I have enough WoW stuff I want to get into.
Well, and next year, when WoW Anniversary event hits, I think we'll be winding down for sure. We'll be the tail end of Dragonflight, and we'll be just before launch or potentially launching of the next expansion. So I think that'll be a really interesting sort of frame to be in as well. We'll have to see what that looks like for the anniversary event and everything else going on. All right, Darkmoon Faire, as I said, is live through Saturday. It's another great way to get Traveler's Log stuff if you're looking to get some more Traveler's Log currency. And the reputation gain is there as well, with the experience gain for the 10% buff. You can also do pet battles to get yourself more tokens for Darkmoon Faire. There's a lot you can. I think this actually, the Traveler's Log for Darkmoon Faire this time is great, because it's like 3 of the games, like the turtle tossing, the bonking of the gnolls, and something else. It might be riding the carousel or something. All 3 of those things are Traveler's Log, so it's really easy to get some Traveler's Log done with Darkmoon Faire. So be sure you're doing that while it's up. So you can take advantage of that. And as well as, everything else that's fun to do there, including like the, Dance Dance achievement and that kind of thing. If you can spare the time away from Season of Discovery and Dragonflight, current content, which is hard to do, everything's kind of pulling on your time.
Yeah. I mean, I think especially Season of Discovery, it's such a moment in time, right? It's so fleeting. Darkmoon Faire will be back around next month, but we're only in this window of SOD one time ever. So, like I said, it's just, there's so much stuff going on that I sort of just by necessity have to miss stuff that maybe would be a bigger part of my routine. So
yeah,
it's a good problem to have.
Tomorrow only is also the Wanderers Festival. So if you head out to the Karasang Wilds inside of Pandaria, you can get yourself some more Traveler's Log currency by participating in the Wanderers Festival, which involves turtles. So if you like turtles, you'll definitely enjoy the Wanderers Festival. And it's a great way to get, I think it's 200 or 100 currency towards Traveler's Log. So definitely head out there and do that. It's chill. It's not my favorite place in Pandaria. It's not my favorite event in Pandaria. It's not my favorite micro holiday. But you know what? For Traveler's Log stuff, I might just do it. I don't know. It's just easy to get. It's a whole bunch of currency. So yeah, it's on my list. Definitely worth checking out.
I don't think I've ever actually done this.
Really? Oh man!
I put it in 2 years ago or something. This is like the third or fourth year for it, and
it was in during Pandaria.
Right, but for it to come back as a micro holiday,
yeah,
I don't think I've been I don't know. Maybe I should check it out if I remember tomorrow just to see if there's anything that anything for me to wrangle out of that. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't one of the original crop of micro holidays, so it sort of got lost in the shuffle for me.
Yeah, this particular event, I think you could get crates, and then the crates would unleash a wave of certain small pets, and I remember all this stuff way back in the Pandaria days, releasing a whole bunch of stuff on the beach. So yeah, no, it's a cool event. It's worth checking out. I'll probably poke my head over, like I said, and then I can talk about it. All right, hot fixes for the week. Live game. We saw, Death Knights in all specs get themselves some tweaks. Death Knights got themselves some damage boosts, as well as the Aberrus class set for Blood. Heartstrike and Blood Boil now deals decreased damage. It's down 10%, as well as has a 5%, not 10% chance to grant Vampiric Blood. So that Blood set got nerfed. However, for Frost, your 2-piece also got itself a small nerf, just minor. And Howling Blast damage got reduced a bit. But your Chill Streak damage got increased by 10%. Your Obliterate damage got increased by 8%. Your Chill Chance to Bounce got increased by 5%. And your Piercing Chill damage got increased by 2%. So as much as they're tweaking the tier sets to sort of scale them back a little bit, they are buffing up some things. They also buffed the proc chance for the 4-piece by 5% for folks that were doing Frost DK stuff. And Holy got buffed across the board. They increased Virulent Plague damage by 15%, Epidemic damage by 12%, Festering Strike by 20%, Festering Wound by 12%, and Ghoul Sweeping Claws by 15%. So you got yourselves a nice big buff across the board for Unholy. These are the types of buffs I like to see, pulling down some of that tier set damage. So there's still cool abilities and cool procs that can happen, but they aren't like, oh, you don't have your 4-piece yet? Sorry, we don't want you because you're just so substantially behind someone who does have their 4-piece that, we don't want you inside the raid. So I'd rather see them bring down some of the tier set bonus damage and increase some of the base ability damage to kind of balance that out a little bit more. So you get the fun procs and the fun playstyle change of having a tier set without it being such a dramatic boost. The people who don't have it just can't compete in any way, shape, or form with people who do. So I think that overall that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, you want the tier sets to be exciting and cool bonuses and powerful, certainly. But yeah, that concern that you mentioned is definitely real. But it's tricky here too, because we're coming out of a place that's some pretty powerful bonuses, and now we're ramping up into sort of the end of the new content. And so then it needs to be sort of even more powerful. I mean, I feel like they're taking wider swings with these set designs than we've seen since sets came back at the end of Shadowlands. I can only speak to the Prot Warrior one, but it is way more involved and more playstyle changing than we've seen since sets came back. So, there's pressure in a couple different directions, but you don't want people to be completely just in the dust, right? If they don't have anything at all. So that's a tough balance to strike.
It is. It really is. Demon Hunters got themselves some nerfs inside Havoc spec, so just keep that in mind. Resto Druids, this is where our all healing increase by 3% came in. However, to my chagrin, they have nerfed the Resto Druid feral damage substantially. Ferocious Bite by 20%, Rip damage by 15, Rake damage by 10, Shred damage by 10. I know it was doing too much damage. And you know why I know it was doing too much damage? Because I felt powerful in cat form as a Resto Druid, which has never really happened before. I've never been in a situation where I was out in the world, I forgot to switch out of Resto spec, I start doing a quest, and a mob comes up to attack me, and I switch into cat form, and I just decimate the mob. And I'm like, wow, that felt really good. That's probably going to get nerfed. Because I shouldn't feel like I should do the damage of a DPS when I'm on a Resto spec. So I understand why it got nerfed. It was definitely higher than it should be. But I am sad because it was really fun. It was really fun while it was in there. I just understand why it had to come down. So yeah.
Well, it's funny because they just buffed.
They just buffed it. I know.
And they went whoopsie.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm like, it can't be like basically as good as just being a feral druid, right? I'm not saying that it was, but like it can't even approach that level. So it does have to be toned down. But like, I don't know. I have a lot of complicated feelings about the support classes, like, you know, specs like tanks and healers having so much damage contribution or having that expectation. It's really not my favorite direction that the game has taken over the years. So, but at the same time, it's that when in Rome kind of idea, right? That is the direction the game has taken. So if you can do more damage, then you should be doing it. But yeah, just dialing it back a little for the off-specking Resto Druids.
Yeah, it felt so good. It was very strange for me to have that nerf come in and be like, oh, I know this was coming and I know this was needed, but it felt really fun while it was there. So I appreciated the small time in the sun that Resto Druid got, having all this damage cranked up there as high as it was. And it doesn't mean that it's totally gone now. You notice it does feel worse because it is a fairly big drop. All right, Augmentation Evokers. The Shifting Sands will now properly trigger twice when casting back-to-back empowered spells with Tip of the Scales. I'm sure a lot of people are rejoicing from that because that was not something that felt good. As well as Devastation Evokers got themselves a 5% damage increase. And the Regenerative Magic increases Leech by 5% up from 3. And Draconic Legacy increases Stamina by 8% up from 6. So Devastation getting themselves some buffs. If that's something that you were looking for. Okay, let's pop down to Warrior, because I do want to highlight your Warrior stuff that you were talking about earlier. Is that in here somewhere?
Well, there's really very little Warrior changes except for some PvP retuning for Fury, which is apparently a style in which you can play Warrior. I've heard of it. Warrior changes have been, Prot Warrior changes have been almost non-existent this whole expand. Like, I don't know. I haven't counted it all up. I would like to see some kind of heat map or like a chart of like
which classes have been touched
tuning
the most?
Changes per spec.
Yeah.
And I would expect that Prot Warrior would be very low on the list of, we just haven't gotten a lot of hotfix changes. So I don't feel like we really need anything, but we haven't been flavor of the month very much of late either. So.
Well, let's move into dungeons then.
Yeah, this was the big this week. As of yesterday in NA and as of today in EU, this was that big tuning pass that we talked about last week that they said was going to be coming.
Yeah.
Obviously, this isn't going to be the end of PvE tuning. They're going to continue to tune PvE and class balance for a few weeks here at the very least. But this was a pretty big round, and some specs got hit pretty hard, and some specs got some needed tweaking. And, we'll see how it shakes out. I'm sure as people gear up, there'll be new outliers or new things that need some attention or, maybe stuff that isn't actually performing up to the level that they had hoped as people start gearing up. And then you see a little boost. So, a lot of changes this week for sure. But as always, this is an ongoing process and a never-ending battle.
Yeah. Okay, as far as dungeons go, they did get some tweaks and changes and bug fixes. One of the ones I want to highlight is Iridikron. The Timeline Transcendence 100% damage increase now also affects players' pets and summons, even if they are not within Chromie's bubble. Hunters and Warlocks, rejoice! You finally get your damage increase that you've been looking for Iridikron. as well as Timeline Transcendence no longer applies onto pets or summons. So you don't actually get the debuff applied. It just applies to their damage. So just keep that in mind. They don't need to have the buff on them. You will just get the damage increase applied to your pets. So yay. It's about time.
I mean, pet classes kind of rely on that, right?
Yep.
You know, like if you're a pet class, you kind of need that pet damage usually. That's usually why you have it. So this is a good change. And I mean, again, it's the first couple weeks of Dawn of the Infinite Dungeons being Keystones, right? So there's going to be these little cases where, like, there's, I don't know, these kind of problems or whatever. So we'll probably see some more changes. I mean, we have a bunch of changes this week to dungeons, and it's maybe a bit less of an ongoing battle than the class tuning. The class tuning never ends, but the dungeon tuning will get to some, and the bug fixes and the weird cases and the visual effects. It'll get to some baseline where they're kind of happy with it, and then that'll be the season.
Yep. And so here's why you wanted to highlight Tyr that you were fighting last night and found very difficult. They reduced his health by 15%, and you still felt like he had too much health.
Yeah, I think he still has 15% too much health.
Yeah,
I would say.
Okay.
I mean, maybe not quite that. I don't know, but I brick walled on 21 Tyrannical Tyr hard last night, and that was after this nerf.
The Tyr will now only cast single dividing strike within a sequence of the infinite hand technique. Okay, so he's not just casting it outside of that, so that's nice. He only does it while he's doing the other ability. So that's good to know. Chronolord Dias' temporal breath impact damage reduced by 20%, periodic damage reduced by 15%. That's a good nerf. That's huge.
Huge.
Yeah.
This thing was a tank wrecker from way back, from, when this was a mega dungeon. This thing was so scary, I had to build specifically around it and have, cooldowns like mapped out for every single one and let my healer know, like, when I have that dot, I'm going to be getting struck.
Yeah.
It still hurts on Keystone. This makes it so much better. I mean, you still have to deal with it. It's still scary, but you're not just going to die out of nowhere because of, the dot it's like a 10-second dot or something.
Yeah.
It's horrendous. So this is very welcome.
Speaking of horrendous and, oh my god, hard to deal with, the vulnerability effect of Chronolord Dias' Infinity Nova has been reduced to 75% from 250%. Yeah, that's nice. Holy crap, is that ever going to help? That is a huge amount of damage reduced.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's 200 down from 250. I mean, again, this might be another thing that is sort of an artifact of the mega dungeon, right? The mega dungeon is supposed to be very challenging. It's not this scalable experience, so you might have something like that because that's good for that kind of gameplay, but it doesn't really work in Keystone.
Yeah. Here's my favorite one, which is probably why you were able to do Everbloom last night a little bit easier. Ancient Protectors, Dulu's Noxious Charge, impact damage reduced by 25%. His discharge damage reduced by 25%. His discharge impact time increased to 2 seconds, up from 1.5. And the visual effect for his Noxious Discharge has been updated. Yeah, I think overall that fight just needs more tweaks, but I'm glad to see that they're doing it because that's definitely going to help when we start seeing changes like that coming in.
Yeah, in Warlords, the visual effect on the charge thing didn't really matter too much, because the fight was 45 seconds or 75 seconds or whatever, and okay, you move them out of the way, whatever. When the fight is 2.5-3 minutes long and you're filling up the room with all the Noxious Discharge crap, and you gotta be really careful about how you position this boss and where everybody's standing when the charge goes off and everything. So, yeah, good changes. Just that visual information. It's stuff that in older expansions, a lot of times they would just kind of gloss over. We saw a lot of these changes even in like Court of Stars when that was a Keystone a couple seasons ago. Ton of updates to the visuals because they didn't even as a Keystone in Legion, it just didn't matter because the tuning wasn't that meticulous. It wasn't that big of a deal. The whole idea of Keystone Dungeon wasn't as fully formed yet. And now it's like, okay, we want to see where are the hard edges of this ability, like what is fair. If I'm going to try to do this on a plus 20 or whatever, then I need that visual information. So, we've seen this before, and I'm glad they're doing it again.
Yeah. Okay. Lady Bahu and her Kirin mages, or Bahu, no longer trigger on-death affixes in Mythic Keystone difficulties. So you no longer have to deal with having bursting going off while you're dealing with the boss, which is nice. I certainly appreciate that. In Emir Destroil, Dreams Hope, the new raid, they have gone through and actually updated a couple of bosses here. They did some Tindral Sage Swift as well as Farak fixes. They also addressed an issue causing barrel charge to hit players standing closely behind Urktos. So if you're someone who is behind the boss and getting hit by a charge, they've now fixed that. It's no longer going to tag you, which is great. As far as Sage Swift goes, we fixed a lot of bugs, and the ride along disabled on players with the Fallen Feather debuff on Mythic difficulty. So apparently there's some Mythic stuff I haven't actually even looked at for Tindral yet. So that's good to know, as well as the Seed of the Flame duration increased to 5 seconds from 3 seconds in Phase 2 on Mythic, and the Falling Star damage reduced by 15%, and Falling Feathers will now spawn around the boss room, with spawning behind the boss on Mythic difficulty. So that last one actually I think is... So they reduced the Falling Star damage, but then they made a lot more variability about where these feathers can spawn, which I don't think is going to help teams. So that's a curious one about that. So that's probably a fix that they felt that it was too easy and too predictable for where these feathers were going to be. So we'll have to see how that plays out for folks. All right, Farak, they resolved an issue where causing Farak to become unlootable if killed during Shadowflame Devastation in Stage 2. Yeah, I think not being able to loot the last boss would have me be very angry as a raider if we finally killed him. So I'm glad that they resolved that.
I mean, aren't you really just there for the friends that you made along the way?
Right. Yeah.
Is the loot on the boss really that important?
Look, if Lore Master Cho was there, I would be okay with this.
Like, it's just Farak loot. Like, nobody wants any of that anyway.
Exactly. They also resolved an issue causing Farak's energy bar to increase too quickly in Stage 3 on Mythic difficulty. So that will be a certain helper for Mythic, although that will also change the timing of everyone who's been working on Phase 3. So just be aware of that. The Blaze now hits fewer targets in Mythic. Farak no longer hits all targets with a flame when casting Incarnate in Mythic. And Searing Scream's damage increased reduced to 100% was 300% on Mythic difficulty. That's a huge one for a lot of folks. They also reduced the health on the Burning Colossus and Dark Colossus by 15%. So they're seeing teams brick wall on Farak. They're wanting people to actually start to be able to kill this boss more consistently. This is your first wave of final boss nerfs that we're seeing for this raid on Mythic. So we'll start seeing more teams knock this boss over. I imagine we will see more heroic nerfs happen next week. That tends to be how this sort of works, is they hit Mythic first, and then they hit heroic, and help teams through finishing off some of these bosses and getting to the farm stage, which a lot of people should be getting to by now, which is good.
I mean, we're still only at 5 worldwide Mythic Farak kills, so we've sort of that was the version of the boss that was for the race. We know they sort of have this boutique end boss that only exists for a certain few teams to kill it, and then they start bringing it back down to earth for mere mortals to attempt. So that's kind of what, that's what's happening here, I think, as much as anything. Just the Harlem Globetrotters tuning is going away, and they're bringing it back down to earth a bit.
Yeah. As far as items go, wherever possible, all cosmetics and collectibles that drop from unique rares and elite enemies in Forbidden Reach and Zarelot Cavern will now drop more often. They have upped the drop rate of your chances to get these items, so people don't have to just live in these dead zones trying to get them. So that's fantastic. Existing rated PvP gear, we talked about this last week on the veteran track, is now, should be now all on the champion track. We were talking about how it was going to be moving there, so now it should be done, that move, and all be set. The PvP class set items that were obtained from the Great Vault or converted at the Revival Catalyst and were previously on the veteran track should also have been moved to the champion track. So you should be all set on that as well, which is good to see. They went through and nerfed some items as well. Aguri, the Primal Flame proc rate was increased to 50% and damage decreased by 33%, so it procs more often, but obviously doesn't hit as hard. They also went in and did a bunch of PvP changes as well, which are good to see, so I'm glad to see that they are tweaking all of the PvP stuff, including the amount of flight stones earned from rated PvP. They all got themselves bumped up by 5 or 10, so whenever you're doing arenas or rated battlegrounds or solar shuffle, you should be getting more flight stones in general. Typically, it looks like most wins now award an additional 10, and most losses now award an additional 5, depending on the activity that you're doing. So you should be seeing a lot more of that kick in. Of course, we got class tuning changes for PvP as well. If you're someone who does a lot of PvP, and that's what you're into, and that's what you're interested in, get in there and check your class changes. There were also class changes that we didn't highlight earlier in the show for priests, for example. If you play a priest and you want to know what happened with your class, by all means, head out inside our show notes. We have a link to all the hot fixes, or you can go to the World of Warcraft site for hot fixes and check that out to see how your class has tweaked and changed overall. Okay, Jason, how about you cover Lynxie's post about Furlath bad luck protection, talking specifically about mythic champions and beginning to harness the intense Shadowflame.
So obviously, we have a new end boss legendary in this patch, and not a lot of people have it yet, and so everybody wanted to know what happens. And so Lynxie had an update from the team about how this works. And basically, she said that the way they did the Evoker Legendary last season is something they felt like they could improve on. And so that is part of what's happening here. She confirmed that you can earn the item with any loot spec for DKs, Paladins, and Warriors. So any of your strength classes, even if you're in a tank spec or whatever, if your tank spec doesn't hold a two-hander, you are still eligible for the drop, which is awesome to know, especially if you're shooting for like the tank trinket or something from Farak, right? It lets you have that flexibility. It can be attained on all difficulties, but it's very rare on Raid Finder, which isn't out yet, of course. But when it comes out, it will be obtainable that way, but it will be very rare. And it increases, they say significantly increases in drop rate with each difficulty. Completion on higher difficulties includes the chances from the uncompleted lower difficulties that week. So it's not like if you do heroic, then, I got to go do normal. I better queue for LFR. I still didn't get it. That's unnecessary. Just do the highest difficulty you can do, and then you're done. And then something that is a little bit different that they're doing this time is when you defeat Farak, if you do not get your starter, you get a Greater Ember of Firaloth, which you consume, and it's like sort of this visual representation of your bad luck protection increasing. It doesn't actually do anything, though, because it's the same way that this worked for Nazaro in Aberrus for Evokers. It's just, that just happened, right? You defeated Sarkareth, and passively your bad luck protection increased, and see you next week. This time, they give your strength classes an item that you consume so that you feel like you did something. It's just a psychological thing. But there is one kind of cool thing that they're doing, which is the Lesser Ember of Firaloth, which you have a chance to earn from any other boss on Mythic or Heroic, and gives you a little extra bump to your bad luck protection. So it's a group loot drop on Mythic. So if you kill it on Mythic, it's an item that, just drops and you have a chance at it. It's personal loot on the lower difficulties, and again, like very, very low chance, especially as you go down the difficulties. So yeah, I think this is obviously coming in a better spot than the last couple legendaries we've seen. The Sylvanas bow, we talked a lot about back in that era, and that was not a great implementation. Nazaro started out bad and got better, but was unnecessarily weird, and the lack of streak protection from the jump is just inexplicable. This, I feel like, should be relatively obtainable while it's still relevant, because we're getting streak protection and stuff in right away. We have an accelerated LFR schedule for release, so people will be able to get into the last boss sooner from the start of the season. And also these extra bonus chances if you're Heroic or Mythic Raider to up that bad luck protection. Hopefully we start seeing some, really start to show up soon. I haven't seen any yet, but I guess I like that. I think what players would really prefer would be, you defeat them and then you get like the quest starter item or something, and then you grind through, re-clear the raid a few times, get some other mats, maybe do some quests, and spend some coin, and then you forge this weapon versus, hey, kill this boss every week until you get the thing, and then do some other stuff to actually forge it into a weapon. Like, I think the grind should be back-loaded, You should be able to get started on the grind up front and maybe make the grind a little grindier even, and don't have that random element tied to like, well, if this thing drops from the boss, then I can start actually doing this. Like, I don't know. I don't know why they're sort of loath to go back to that thing that I feel like they used to do, where you just sort of get on the quest and the quest is really long and grindy, but then you know that you're going to finish it and get the thing, right? That's sort of how some of the older ones felt. This is not, it's not as bad as the last one they did, but it's still not, I don't think it's as good as it could be.
Fair enough. Yeah, I definitely think that there's always room to improve on this sort of stuff, and you highlighted some pretty good points there about that. So we'll have to see what ends up happening with this. I'm with you. I'm in favor of, hey, this should be a system where someone essentially gets an item right away, and it becomes a grind where maybe you have to kill the boss 6 times, whatever it is, and then you move to the next step, and then you get the item that you want. And then, as opposed to it being, hey, kill the boss, get an item, use that item, that'll mean that your chance is now higher to get the thing that you need next time. Keep doing this until you finally get the item. I think people like being able to track their progress a little bit more clearly as to what's going on with something. And if it said kill Farak 5 times, people would be like, okay, I need to get in for 5 Farak kills. We got to figure this out. Like, that would be the thing, right? So I think they could do with a different system, in my opinion. Okay, Merrymaker at the December Trading Post. Man, oh man, this is the December one, so this has got a bunch of stuff in it that folks might be interested in, including the tier sets, not tier sets, well, the Trading Post sets, I guess is the best way to put it, for Evoker, Hunter, and Mage, and Shaman. If you're one of those who's looking to get any of those sets, be sure you're trying out to get it. This includes some weapon stuff, which means that there's the Treasures of the Silver Hoarder. So actually the staff in the Treasures of the Silver Hoarder is the staff off Farak, only it's silver, not gold. So keep that in mind if that's a model you want. Personally, for me, at all the weapons in this thing, the Tools of Craigwaz Executor just look substantially better than all the other ones, to be honest. I do like the Frost Staff for mages inside their battle armaments as well, but the Shaman weapon stuff just looks rad. I had to pick up Mitzi right away. I just needed to have a reindeer with a red nose. I think that's just absolutely cute. And I do want to point out, this is a little Christmas-y thing. Female reindeer are the only ones who keep their horns during the winter, which means Rudolph and all the reindeer on Santa's sleigh were actually female reindeer, just putting it out there, according to actual facts about reindeer. So Mitzi is totally accurate with these horns.
I mean, you would know up there, in the Great White North. That's important information for you to have when you're out in the tundra or whatever you're doing up there. You know.
Also, the Crimson Glimmerfur, the red fox, is up in this too. I definitely had to pick up one of those. And then, of course, there's Garlock, and who could turn down a cute little young, one-eyed ogre being all adorable. So definitely also worthwhile getting. The one thing that was like a wild card for me that I saw and I was like, dude, I probably need to get this, is the Scarlet Zealots trappings. Like the whole Scarlet Crusade, like full-on transmog look. That caught me off guard. I did not expect that to be in here. It is totally worthwhile getting. And if you're someone who's like big into Blade Master lore, they not only have the Azure Stones, the necklace, Blade Master necklace, they also have the Thundering Greatsword for you to look at picking up. So the Storm Riders, Stormhammers also look very cool when you're actually using them. So yeah, be sure that you're maxing out your trading post this month to try and get yourself your baby moose. Everyone needs Buttercup the baby moose, so get out there and do your trading post.
Yeah, like a battle pet's not the most exciting bonus reward for the month, but the baby moose is pretty cute, and it's got some really funny sound effects that it makes while you have it out and chilling. I bought the Scarlet Zealots trappings right away. Just super cool. It's a chest, cloak, and a shield for $5.50, which is nice. I also got the Errant Crusader's helm, which is sort of this reskin. It's got some new graphics. It's kind of like the Tomb of Sargeras warrior set helmet from Legion, and just a really cool look. It's very reminiscent of Tier 2 from Vanilla.
Yeah.
And I had to get the Wildhammer Scouts headgear and the Storm Rider Stormhammers just in case I ever want to just go full Wildhammer Dwarf on something. I feel like it's a very underrepresented archetype in World of Warcraft generally, and especially for player characters. And the lightning effect, you get 2 hammers for 400 tender, and one of them's just kind of the hammer model itself, and it's nice looking. It looks very Wildhammer Dwarven. It's got the big feathers, like the griffin feathers hanging from it, and this big gnarly looking mace. And then there's a version of it that has this like lightning electricity effect on it, like a Stormhammer thing. And the effect, the VFX are just amazing on that thing. So yeah, I had to snap that up just in case. I sort of abandoned my dream of getting all the tank class armor and weapon sets because I just didn't really think they were good value, is what it came down to. You know, I got the Paladin stuff and I was so disappointed in it that I was like, okay, well, this frees up thousands of tender. I'm still going to get the Warrior one because Warrior. I'm going to get the Monk one because it is actually pretty cool and there's stuff that you could do with it, you know, with other looks. And the Monk is kind of my second favorite thing anyway. So, yeah, you know, because otherwise I'd be pretty much out of tender by now after the last couple months with all the tank classes. But yeah, so I ended up just kind of doing all my shopping right away this month since I had some extra tender freed up that I had been saving. And I was like, wow, there's actually some really nice, you know, kind of smaller ticket stuff for me this month. I didn't go in on the mount or anything, but yeah, I don't know. It's like I'm not really trying to do the whole candy cane sword thing and, you know, that whole idea. Like the Wintervale Mogs are not really the lane that I'm trying to exist in. So it's cool if you want it though. I mean, if you're looking for that, there's that kind of stuff here. They really leaned into it with, you know, you can get like the red and white, you know, evening gloves and the cloaks and all that stuff. So if you want to go the full like Wintervale Christmas Santa kind of thing, then, you know, Trading Post has you covered.
Sorry, it is definitely a look if that's what you want to do. I'm not a huge fan of the Wintervale looks, so, you know, it is what it is. If you're someone who wants to dive in and cover that, you can. I will say that.
I mean, hey, there's definitely a market for it. Like, and if that's your thing, then get in there for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job with it this month of like that stuff is represented, but there's also this stuff that sort of has no real strong thematic tie to anything else. It's just here's some Wildhammer Dwarf stuff this month.
Yeah. The okay. Speaking of transmog, you can get yourself the Sky Captain's Masquerade attire for $15 US or $19 Canadian. If you want to, on the Blizzard store. It is going to leave the store indefinitely on January 1st, 2024. And so if you haven't gotten it by then guess what? You can get it from the Trading Post because it will arrive in the Trading Post, but no sooner than 3 months after it leaves the actual in-game shop. So that's how this stuff always works, which I think is great. I think it's a great system. So if this is something you want, but you don't want to spend $15 US on it, then you can choose to hang on to some currency for when it drops in game inside the Trading Post sometime in, you know, probably May. Right?
Yeah, something like that.
Well,
you'll notice. Do you notice something that this bundle does not include? There's just we don't usually get into stuff that you can buy.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a reason why I put this item on the docket for us today because I don't really like to like advertise. Okay, this is in the cash shop, whatever. But sometimes there's reasons to highlight it. And the last couple sets of transmog and stuff we've seen included Trader's Tender.
Yep.
And that was very controversial, and you can go back and probably find those episodes where we talked about it. And I think there's pros and cons to that either way, but overall, the Trading Post and Trader's Tender has mostly felt like a thing that's a reward for playing the game, and I'm glad to see that they put this one in here without any tender in it. And It's like, okay, if you want the Mog, and you want it now, you want the whole set, and you just want to have it because you want to be a Sky Pirate, which I understand if that's what you want, you can pay cash and you can have it. Or, you know, it will be a Trading Post reward and you can engage with that system and you can participate in it and you can purchase it when it's available on the post if that's the way you want to go. And I think that's good. Also, this is the first time that we've seen a bundle like this pop up on the store since the Microsoft acquisition closed. So
True.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know that has anything to do with anything. And they try different stuff with marketing the game and the products around the game all the time. So it may not have anything to do with anything, but these are the reasons why I thought this was interesting enough for us to bring up on the show, because this is a pretty hard 180 from a brand new trend that we just saw over the summer. So, I guess we'll see if this, as time goes along, if maybe maybe they include tender with smaller bundles, right? If it's like, oh, it's just the Risk Corsages or whatever and some tender, well, then that makes it maybe worth buying a tiny little item, and processing a credit card transaction for it. But if you're buying a bigger set where you get a full transmog look, then they don't need to throw something else in to make that like a viable sale item. Maybe it's just as simple as that. And we'll see. It's still, we haven't even had Trading Posts for a full year yet, so it's still sort of, we're seeing them experiment with different ways that they incorporate it into the game and into the cash shop and how all that stuff gets marketed and designed around.
Yep. Now to talk about the actual transmog itself, just so people know, it is of like a Delegant, a very high-end looking, you're going to a big ball kind of masquerade look, because it's gold and white and black. So it's very much like a proper dress uniform kind of Sky Captain's outfit. So yeah, if that's something that you're into and you're looking to pick up, then you can either get it in-game or you can buy it through the cash shop. It's up to you as to which way you want to try and get it. All right. PTR, which is so weird to say because it still feels super fast that all this is happening. But yes, PTR, we know that the Night Elves are hard at work constructing their new home, Belemeth. But like all great things that take time to perfect, it's currently a work in progress. So yeah, that's still being built as the new home for Night Elves. All class talents that were previously Shadowlands Covenant abilities have had their spell visuals updated to match their visual kit. This is something we highlighted last week. So I'm glad they are, they've now gone live with that. That was the plan last week. Evoker, the source of magic now lasts 1 hour, up from 30 minutes. The Revival Catalyst, the Renaissance Dream charges are now granted weekly, as opposed to every other week inside. This is on PTR, just keeping that in mind. And the skull icons on the instance difficulty banner near the minimap have been updated with new art. And I always like getting new art. So that's always good to see too. Yep.
Small PTR build last week. And, a lot of the stuff we know they're not going to test, right? Like some of the story segments. I think it's awesome that we have confirmation that we're going to get weekly catalyst charges as soon as 10.2.5 is out. That's good news and maybe something to plan around or whatever, especially regarding if you have like multiple characters to take care of. I do want to point out something about the visual change to Shadowlands Covenant abilities. There is a note that they say, based on your feedback for wanting the option to keep the Shadowlands spell visuals, we'll be adding a way to revert these talents back to the Shadowlands visuals in a future update, which I think rules. I mean, I think we even said that when we were talking about it last week or whatever it was. Like,
it's exactly
could be an opportunity for a glyph or whatever, And I mean, if all that stuff exists, why not incorporate it? If people really like it, then I think having the ability to swap the visual, and then you get into a whole thing of, well, we have like hero talents coming in War Within too. Like, does this maybe open the door to having more cosmetics, around spell visuals, VFX, animations, whatever? I mean, that would be tricky. It seems like it's always the hardest for them to get art out into the world via the game, right? And so that could be a lot, but they've also changed stuff a lot over the years. So maybe, people would want to revert to different looks or, older VFX or something, just out of familiarity, or they're fond of a particular look, or maybe they could, bring in additional looks for VFX as we go. I mean, I think that'd be awesome. That would be, I feel like players would love to customize that, because as much as like what your character looks like in terms of your customization and your gear, how they interact with the world through combat is also a big part of what they actually look like, So that'd be a really cool opportunity. It'll probably just be confined to this for the foreseeable future, but I love the fact that it's just immediately on the table on PTR.
I'm with you. I'm glad it's immediately on the table. I definitely understand the hesitation around this, simply because there's the opportunity that PvP becomes really weird if all of the spell effects are different for the same spells. Where getting used to like having to learn what 9 different spell effects look like, so that you, for each class, so you can understand or to learn what they're like. Aura
in inside instance PvP where it just reverses the default.
You absolutely could. Like there's lots of things you can do.
World PvP is still edgy, but it's always gonna be like that. World PvP isn't supposed to be balanced; it's supposed to be dangerous.
Agreed.
So I mean, you bring up a good point, but I do think like there are also tech ways to make that fair when it comes to like a competitive environment. So, but that's more work they have to do. So it just depends on what the priorities are and what they can afford. I'm sure if they could, they would do everything that we could ever think of and more. Imagine what they've thought of, that they know they can't do. Yeah. And we just see little glimpses of it.
Exactly. Okay. Let's wrap up. Let's take a moment here to thank our patrons. I like to take a moment to thank our patrons. They contribute a ton to our show and help us improve on the content we create. Today, I'm giving a special shout out to Alianas, Arajian, Celian, James, Kapawi, Max, Shorel, and Vespin. Thank you so much for everything that you give, as well as all of our patrons. Thank you even to our newest patron, Peter M. Thank you so much for hopping in and supporting the show. We really appreciate it. Thank you, patrons. You're all wonderful. We appreciate everything you give. Our Patreon's live over at patreon.com/thestartingzone if you're looking to find it. And every little bit goes towards supporting the show and supporting the activities around the show and technology for the show and hosting of the show. So it is a great way to support us and make sure that we keep going and keep making episodes every week. Thank you so much, everyone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, patrons. You make it possible in a really tangible and sincere way. And welcome aboard, Peter. Thank you for supporting the show. And we've heard from so many patrons and new listeners and stuff lately, and it's fun when people are excited about WoW, man. It really is. And I think people are feeling that right now, and it's very gratifying to be doing the show when people are having fun with the game and want to engage with other people about it. I think that's the real benefit of working on a show like this, is having those conversations and having that sort of community around it. It's so much fun, especially when the game is riding high. So thank you, everybody that's been checking in, and thank you, patrons, for your continued support and helping us keep the show on track and delivering what you expect. I don't know how many of you expected like an hour of Season of Discovery today, but I hope you enjoyed it, because sincerely, we're loving it, and I hope even if you're not like a classic player that you're willing to check it out, because I swear you're gonna like it.
Yeah, it wasn't quite an hour. Fortunately, we kept it closer to about 40 minutes. But yes,
yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot of classic talk for us. But I mean, it's not really like it's vanilla WoW, but it's not classic. Well, that's the tantalizing thing about it.
The important thing to me about it is it's an opportunity, and I know we're digging back into talking about it again, so we're probably going to go to an hour. But anyways, it's an opportunity for us to see where the developers' minds are at and what could be coming up in live game. There's no reason why the WoW Classic team who's working on Season of Discovery doesn't influence or have conversations or do something that the WoW Live team looks at and goes, yeah, sure, we should do something like that. Maybe we should look at having, more advanced ways of affecting skills, or, may change our leveling experience so that you can get things earlier on. And if you get this ability earlier on, it feels better. Or maybe there's more accessible tier stuff earlier and there's more better leveling tier sets. Maybe, heirlooms. Get some of these effects attached to heirlooms. Like maybe an heirloom item now has your Wrath spell costs no mana and has a chance to proc a free healing touch, right? Just throw these things onto heirlooms so people who are leveling characters, who've already leveled a character, have this advanced experience, or something, other players can get. There's so many ways to sort of spice things up that I think it'd be kind of cool to see what they could do with it. And I do feel like the teams do overlap enough to have those sorts of conversations. So yeah, I just think it's relevant to talk about for sure. Okay, if you folks have enjoyed this episode, consider heading on over to thestartingzone.com and leaving some feedback there. But a better place to leave feedback is on the iTunes and Apple Podcast. If you leave us a 5-star, that's what really helps us out. Those 5-star reviews, those reviews help boost our show up the charts and help more people find our show and listen to our show. And this one comes in from Silka, entitled Great Information and Entertaining. Says, I've been a listener for a long time with a break when I stopped playing WoW for a few years. When I picked back up in 2020, the first thing I did was look this up again, and to my surprise, it had new hosts. I was super happy with what I found, and I've been listening again ever since. I don't get to play much as much as I would like anymore, but I'm glad I can keep up with TSE and maximize my game time with your help. Thanks for keeping it going. Silka, I'm so glad that you found that we helped you out. And yeah, I guess you joined in. You stopped listening just before we took over. It was pretty close to when the handoff happened. So yeah, that's great that you still enjoy the show and that we're able to help you. And I'm very happy to help you get the most out of your game time. So thank you for leaving us the review.
Absolutely, thank you for taking time to write in. And the review was really great. It made me smile for sure. And that's the first time I think I've heard a story like that, right? A lot of times we hear like, oh, I didn't know that anybody did the show before you guys. I didn't hear about the show in the Mick and Jesse era or whatever. Like we hear that one sometimes. Yeah. Or we definitely know there were a lot of people who departed with Mick and never came back.
It's
fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's to be expected. But I think this is the first time I can remember somebody saying that they used to listen in the Mick days, and then they stopped and came back, and then it was different, and then they listened to that.
They were pleasantly surprised.
That's really cool. So thank you for taking the time to share that with us, and glad you're digging the show. And I'm sorry to hear that you don't have the WoW time you would like, but hopefully you're getting the most out of it, and we're gonna continue to help people do that around here.
Yeah.
So it's always nice to hear, because that's one of the main things that we want to do when we put the show together.
Exactly. All right, that's going to wrap up episode 608 of The Starting Zone. If you want to check out show notes for this episode or leave us a comment on the show, you can go over to thestartingzone.com, the official website for the Starting Zone podcast. If you want to contact the show and leave us your feedback or ask a question, you can email us at thestartingzone@gmail.com, or reach out to us on Twitter at The Starting Zone, or you can join our Discord server, thestartingzone.com/Discord, and you can chat with us over there. If you want to get your hands on some TSZ gear, you can find that over at tpublic.com/stores/thestartingzone, or you can just go to tpublic.com and type The Starting Zone into their search bar, and you'll find one of our shirts, and then that will take you to our store, and you can find all of our shirts and all of our stuff, including the tie-dye ones, which are kind of hilarious. I like that the tie-dye stuff exists. I just think it's cool. You can check out all those sweet designs over there, though. And Jason, where can folks find you on the internet?
Oh, the best place to find me, as always, is over on Twitter. You can find me over there at Shieldwald, always talking WoW and whatever other stuff I'm doing. And you can find me streaming WoW over on twitch.tv/Shieldwald on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Sunday nights for Amir Drasil raiding, Prague, Keystones, sometimes some other stuff if there's like outdoor stuff to do, sometimes switching over to Season of Discovery. So come check that out. Stream has been working a bit better lately. I'm knocking on all the proverbial wood possible as I say that. So, I'm trying to keep it consistent. If you've followed for a while, I've had massive tech issues with my ISP. I'm not saying they're cleared up, because I have no faith in that, but last couple stream nights have been really good. So come check that out. You can also find me on YouTube over at youtube.com/Shieldwald. I was doing co-streams like out to both platforms for a while, but I haven't really been able to. So that's kind of dormant for now, but I am over there. And so if anything ends up over there, it will be there. So come check that out.
Great. If you're trying to find me, you can find me on Twitter at Spencer_Downey, or over on Twitch at twitch.tv/SpencerHD, or on YouTube at youtube.com/@SpencerHD. And with that, for Jason and myself, we want to say thanks for listening, and jobs done.